Welcome back, David. What seems like forever, even though we have been recording videos every single week, but we just run into some issues of what we can and what we can't talk about. So we didn't
Yeah,
disappear.
we can just say it. We can just say it. We got censored. We got censored on YouTube for talking about the cerveza sickness.
Yeah, yeah, it happens, and it happens all the time. Even though, like, we always put disclaimer also at the very beginning. This is for informational purposes only. So however you take it, whatever you want to do it. But there are some videos on our private group, our school group, that are not censored. So if people want to see what we were pulled down for, they can go there. They can they can do their stuff, and they just need to reach out for us. So we always put a link up underneath the descriptions that
Yeah, for the school group. Yeah, yeah.
they can go and
So
see more. And I know you also run your live Q&A once a month where nothing is
no,
hold.
yeah, nothing censored. Yep, it's a direct upload. Direct upload. Yep.
That being said, today we're gonna go into a topic that's probably exploded after US elections, Bitcoin and blockchain. And
Yes.
I'm more interested in tying into how can we use it for health, fitness, lifestyle improvement purposes. Is
Yeah.
there anything that we can pull from Bitcoin blockchain philosophy that can be related to health? And what benefits, uses, any other kind of things that are out there that we can apply knowing what blockchain actually is.
Yeah.
So I'll let
So,
you open up
well,
about
yeah. Let's start
what
with
is that? What are benefits? What are downfalls? We touched up about that. There are some things that scientists specifically can use blockchain for.
yeah. Yeah,
So
and
things
for the people listening to this, right? For the people listening to this, our previous video that got pulled down was heavily about Bitcoin and blockchain and how it's been used or being used by scientists and all kinds of people for how would I say disseminating information that's uncensorable, right? That's very important to understand. Blockchain technology, including Bitcoin, or I would say focusing on Bitcoin. Other blockchains will do this, but not all of them. So maybe let's start with that, right? There's a difference between cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the only one that has stood the test of time, meaning it's been around the longest and it's been attacked the most, right? If you really want to know the history of Bitcoin, somebody on YouTube called BTC Sessions does an excellent job. He's got a lot of videos on tutorials of Bitcoin specifically, but he also goes into the history of why Bitcoin over other cryptocurrencies for certain reasons, right? And basically, the difference is this: there is no CEO, there is no company of Bitcoin. That it runs on its own by three factors: the miners doing their job, the users doing their job, which is uh, owning their own Bitcoin on their own private wallet, not leaving it on exchanges, and then some of those users run nodes. Nodes are kind of like the verification side of this program, right? So it's not that much different than nature, right? You cannot exist in a vacuum, right? We talk about your environment dictates all kinds of things, right? So your existence on this planet is not just dictated by your decisions, meaning whether you work out or not, or whether you eat healthy or not. Those are only half of what makes up your biology, right? If you have been listening to any of what we put out for a while now, you understand that there is two major components that make your body run, which is your environment and then your internal environment. The internal environment is dictated by you, right? Like as far as your thoughts, your food, your exercising, those are your internal environments that you can change from moment to moment. And then there is the
and
external
I'm
environment.
kind of, yeah, you need to work on changing them. Like you described
Correct.
that you you have control over it. You probably have control over it when you snap out of educational system. Let's be honest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's actually why we heavily focus on the environment, right? The environment allows you to change your internal environment more easily, right? And what I mean by that is, hey, waking up in the morning and doing something hard, right? Like that's simple but hard, right? Going outside for a cold weather walk or going outside every morning to greet the sunrise and get a dopamine and catecholamine reaction and kickstart the day from the internal side. It allows you to make better decisions, right? So one influences the other much more heavily, right? And so that's actually kind of how Bitcoin works, right? The miners are just doing their verification of verifying the transactions. The nodes are what make it uncensorable, and I'll explain it just briefly, right? Um, Again, if you want to know more deeper history, you can go to the channel that I mentioned. But a lot of people are like, especially when they come new to Bitcoin, they're like, well, what happens if somebody, hacks Bitcoin or decides to change the algorithm or the computation, the thing that makes Bitcoin Bitcoin? What happens if somebody wants to change it? And the answer is we already know what happens. That's already happened. It's happened twice, actually. Um, and when that happens, the nodes, I mean, in other words, the people that are users that are running the verification program called the node, they have to choose to run the new program. If they choose not to run the new program, guess what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. And that's happened twice. People decided to change the code or the algorithm of Bitcoin. One of them was, Bitcoin Cash, right? So everybody understands that there's a lot of cryptocurrencies out there. There's one called Bitcoin, and then there's others that kind of have a whole bunch of other names. But there are some that, like Bitcoin Cash is not Bitcoin, but it's what's called a fork. That happened in 2017. Bitcoin or actually, I might be wrong on the year, but either way, the point is somebody, a group of people with a lot of money and a lot of backing decided, hey, we want to change what Bitcoin is. We don't want a 21 million cap on the coins that are produced. We wanted to make some other number, right? That was one of the major changes they wanted to do. They wanted to change, they wanted to inflate the market cap, right? The amount of Bitcoin that can be issued. And so they changed the code. That can be done. But the nodes, the people in the system holding Bitcoin and verifying the transactions, they decided we don't want to do that. Only certain people decided to do that. So the people that did decide to do that, they had to upgrade their program in their node and they ran Bitcoin Cash. Everyone else, they stayed on Bitcoin. So what does that mean? It gives you the choice. It gives you the choice, which is unlike, we're talking about how is this approach synonymous or helpful in terms of health. Choice is what what will keep you healthy, or at least having the choice. And that is something that's getting pulled from us more and more, especially when we see the type of censoring that we're going through and stuff like that. It's clear as day that people are not being given the choice by not given the right information. They're not allowing all of the information to come out. And that's where blockchain technology really shines. Any blockchain technology that doesn't have a CEO and doesn't have a company is unmanipulatable. It's uncensorable because the blockchain is forever. Once there is a piece of data on the blockchain, it's there forever. Forever. And the best part is it's completely public, completely public. You don't need special credentials. You don't need a special computer. You don't need anything special to find that for forever. Right. And what is this? And again, I'm kind of dancing around the subject without saying it because that's kind of how we have to do this episode. And so what I'm saying is scientists, real scientists, geneticists have gone through the effort of, hey, are these shots safe? Right? That answering that question, simple question that people want to know, right? Because it's clear that the evidence is suggesting otherwise in terms of what we're experiencing real life, real world, right? And so the data that's been provided so far has been enormously lopsided. It's coming directly from the people making the things, right? And so it's easy to see that you're not being supplied with all the right information. So, and when somebody like us or a researcher tries to, or a doctor, right, tries to get out their side of the story, their information, it's censored. It's censored to the point where it gets wiped off the internet. And so there's some scientists out there that are Bitcoiners And they realize this thing about blockchain technology that's uncensorable. And so what they've done is they've done their research and they've compiled it and then essentially made a QR code so that you can, scan or download, and then that takes you to all their research. It takes you to all of the privately hosted, right? And so, and the best thing is it's uncensorable and it's there forever, right? 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you will still be able to go back in time on the blockchain, see their research and clearly see where it all started and all of that type of stuff. And I won't give, well, I will give the researcher's name because it shouldn't be flagged in any way, but just so that people can find him on X, right? We'll keep our fingers crossed, but his name is, I mean, if it gets flagged by his name, then we know the censoring is enormous. But his name is Kevin McKernan, or McKiernan, and he's on X. The reason why he's on X is because just like blockchain, well, not just like blockchain, as long as Elon is around, X is not censoring people, right? And so he is not able to be censored on X. So if you want to know more about the the cerveza sickness and the shots, then that's where you would want to go and you would want to follow, and you'd probably want to subscribe to his newsletter. He puts out a weekly newsletter where he is actively doing this research, right? He is literally actively doing this research. Again, in our previous video that got flagged or got censored, we went in a lot more detail of exactly what he did and how he exploited Bitcoin to get this out to the light, and not only for other people to read, but able to be used in court, right? This is already got precedent, where blockchain technology can be used to bring evidence into legal matters because it's uneditable, right? It's just what it is, right? That's the beauty of blockchain. Now, how can that help with other terms? That's a big one for health, right? Like, because let's face it, um, with the recent election of Trump, right? His whole running campaign was "Make America Healthy Again," right? And that then he got RFK Jr. on board and all of that. And there has been a big misdirect happen after the election that we have noticed, which is before the election, there was a lot of talk about the cerveza sickness and the shots in terms of, hey, we need to investigate this further. We need to really figure out what's what, and all of this type of stuff. And then the moment the actual election gets over, the talk of making America healthy again is solely focused on food. We see commercials with RFK talking about dyes and things in our food that isn't really food, that's actually probably making you sick and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with talking about those things. Those are real concerns. Those are real things. That's why when we talk, the first thing that we talk about when it comes to nutrition is real food, right? Shakes and fake foods and all of that. Real food is what you need because that's what your body is meant to, anything that has fake dyes in it, anything that has products in it that you can't even pronounce are probably not doing you any help, right? And we've seen the campaign turn heavily into that, even making commercials about, hey, we're going to go into the, FDA, and we're going to make sure that they, ban BHB and ban, red number 40 and yellow number 5 and all of that type of
And I
stuff,
just
right?
want to add that it's not just that, it's a quantity. When people go like, yeah, you need hell of a lot of this to actually have negative side effects, this and that. Yeah, it's great. We all understand that. But if that's all you eat since you are born until you are 40, 50, 60, 70, no wonder you don't make to 80.
Correct. And that's why I'm saying, like, it's not that that's not true. It's that the elephant in the room is being put off into the corner. You see what I'm saying? Like, the campaign was focusing on that a lot, especially with Nicole Shanahan, Shanahan, which was the running mate of RFK Jr. She's still doing her thing with like alerting people to electromagnetic fields and the uh, the the shots, and that sort of stuff. But RFK has kind of been hamstrung and is now focusing heavily on the food only. And that has to do with lobbyists, has to do with money, right? And again, this is where things like Bitcoin and blockchain technology come in shine, right? Let's put it this way, right? If If you're a scientist, right, and your paycheck no longer is contingent on being able to be published in a popular journal, in other words, you can publish your data and your findings directly to a blockchain, and you can receive monetary value from that blockchain. Now the rules start to change a little bit about what, freedom of information, which is really what is being controlled right now. The information is all lopsided right now when it comes to health and when it comes to keeping your loved ones healthy in terms of what comes next, right? Because we're already seeing some very concerning things that do tie to food, right? This type of technology that was used in the shots now being advocated to be used in animal products like your beef and your pork. That is a big deal. That's a big problem because some of the data that's coming out from Kevin McKernan is also suggesting that some of these, how would I say, nanotechnologies can be transferred from person to person, bodily fluid to bodily fluid type of scenario. Well, what happens if you're eating the stuff that's being manipulated? That's a big concern, right? Now, that's not currently happening, but it is in legislation and there are bills being passed that's going to allow this to happen to your food. That's why it's a big deal. It's because they're hiding the crucial information to make decisions, right? And
So
that,
what I'll try to just round it up because I think some people will get lost in all this. First of all, we know that there has been incentive to use AI to scrape internet and to just put out the very useful information. Who decides who is useful is anyone's guess. But what blockchain actually allows us to do is dig deep and find people who are exposing their opinion without anyone else meddling with that. We know Wikipedia is a great tool and one of the most abused tools because you can literally go and see that some of those facts, so to speak, are edited hundreds of times. And like,
Mhm.
which time was actual fact then? So blockchain gives us an opportunity to look into something before it's been redacted, edited, meddled with. Uh,
Mhm.
like we have these little videos everywhere, like he said this and he said that. Like, yeah, you took out three words from that point of conversation, then added 3 points from 2 hours later, and then another three, and made one short video making somebody like he's an absolute lunatic. So blockchain surpasses all that and gives us opportunities to see the raw data for what it is, right?
Yes, correct, correct. And I will emphasize, right? Some of you, some of the listeners might already be on X, right, which was Twitter, and now that it's X, it's considered it's considered a place where you can speak freely, right? And again, that's what uh, Elon Musk is promoting. Now, here's
I
the
mean, also,
thing.
not everyone will agree because they think if someone is on opposite opinion, that's a lie. But
Correct, right, and so which is
everyone,
why I'm bringing up, yeah, that which is why I'm bringing this up, right?
my 5-year-old niece will have completely different opinions than I do.
Correct, correct. And so X is one of those places where you seem to be able to say what you want to say. Things are allowed, right? But at the same time, if the government were to contact Elon Musk, and if the terms and conditions in that conversation were beneficial to him, there's nothing stopping him from censoring you, right? Now, there's another program out there called Nostr. Nostr is a Bitcoin-based social media platform. What does that mean? That means that it's using the blockchain to do exactly what Kevin McKernan did. Anything you post on there, it's forever. Any information you put on there, it's forever. Any communication that you want to have with any other person on there, it's basically a social media platform. It's a communication platform, but you need to have a little bit of Bitcoin to be able to get into that platform. And having the Bitcoin acts like a Bitcoin firewall. What does that mean? That means if somebody wants to censor you, they have to pay Bitcoin to censor you. It becomes a monetary issue now, right? They can't just now you actually need funds to be able to censor somebody, right? That's a big deal because now it costs you to censor somebody, right? Which up until now, that's nobody's done that, right? Nobody's willing to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in Bitcoin to do that. And the reason why that's a big deal, right? Because if you know, you could quickly make the point, well, the government has thousands and thousands of dollars, billions of dollars. They could censor anybody. Yeah, but here's the thing. If you're familiar with what Bitcoin is, which is it only has 21 million Bitcoin ever that will ever be made. The moment you sell any of your Bitcoin, you're never getting that Bitcoin back because the only time you're going to be able to get Bitcoin again is at a higher price. You see what I'm saying? So unless somehow you can multiply your multiple to buy the same Bitcoin back, you just won't. So people are very cautious about how they spend their Bitcoin when they truly understand what's going on with Bitcoin, right? And so
Not buying
we'll
pizza
kind
for 10,000 Bitcoin anymore.
right. And so we'll kind of leave that at that as far as like how deep we'll get into like how scientists and social media can exploit blockchain, right? So now
Yeah,
let's
so
talk.
what you explain is not so much about like monetary value and whatnot, but it's the systems that prevents us from being defrauded, so to speak.
Correct.
In a sense,
Correct.
we just have the raw opinion of somebody without anyone else interfering with that and whatnot. And I think it really draws the parallels to what you said. It's limited. Same like our health, our ability to be as strong as we can, as big as we can, as healthy as we can. We have limits to it. Very few of us know what that limit is. But if we approach the way I would approach any kind of investment, especially something like Bitcoin, which is classed as high risk investment, is longer, slower approach, tapping slowly into it and letting that compound interest, so to speak, stack up and
Mhm.
probably never pulls the rug underneath it. You know, instead of building yourself up with amount of drugs that everyone's trying to do and then going out and partying for 5 days in a row, sniffing your nostrils into oblivion and hoping that you're going to be healthy in 10 years time. It's just not going to happen. So slower,
Right.
longer approach, similar to what Bitcoin actually kind of incentivizes you to do, might be great approach for health, longevity, and everything else that people are interested in when it comes to increasing quality of life later in
Yeah,
years.
yeah. Yeah, and I think you know, just kind of taking off from that point, I think now we can focus on more of what people kind of understand about crypto and blockchain technology, which is the financial side of things. So we'll talk a little bit about that, right? Like cryptos, right? Cryptos, like I said, have a company, have a CEO, have things like that. So their technology can be modified, right? That's the biggest thing to understand that separates Bitcoin from cryptos. What does that mean? That means that just like the government, your government or my government can print money whenever they want, whenever they feel they need money, they just print it, right? That's kind of how that works. They don't need to raise your taxes. They just print it and then tax you with inflation later, right? Whether you want it or not. And so that's what can still happen with cryptos. It cannot happen with Bitcoin, right? So let's talk into that paradigm, right? Let's talk about why it's beneficial. Just like what you said, hey, I'm not telling people to go all in on Bitcoin. Now, that's not necessarily how I run my show, but I have a very high risk tolerance, and I've also been doing it for 7 years now, right? So I
And you have a huge mastermind group that's way more invested in all that and giving you advice based on their knowledge as well. You're just not shooting in the dark. Hey, Bitcoin is good, and I need to buy it now. It's not
Yeah,
emotional decision.
I've invested a lot of time in getting all of the information, right? Which is why we started the conversation like we started. You cannot make accurate decisions when you only have half the information, right?
Yeah.
And so I invest a lot of time and money in making sure that I surround my people or myself with people that are giving me all of the information, right? The good and the bad. But I want to have the biggest picture possible, which is not that much different than a health journey, right? We need to know the big picture or we can't tell where to steer you, right? And so that's no different than this, right? And so back to the point is starting slow is the best for everybody. That's how I started, right? It can be as easy as, hey, I save $200 a month and that's what I turn into Bitcoin, right? Something simple, something that's not going to cost you much. And you know, In the early days, I would have said it should be something that you're comfortable with losing. At this point in time, I don't even need to say that. You're not going to lose it, right? Like I can say that with 100% certainty at this point in time now. I could not say that 7 years ago, right? But now I can tell you with 100% certainty, whatever money you put in there, you're never going to lose it as far as Bitcoin goes, right? Other cryptocurrencies, hands off, right? Like those get rug pulled all the time, right? And so Bitcoin cannot. And the reason it cannot is because there isn't anybody to manipulate. There isn't anybody to get in trouble. There isn't anybody to send to jail. There isn't anybody to censor, right? So that won't happen. But you do want to start slow in terms of kind of dipping your toes in the water and feeling out how it's going to be beneficial to you, because it's going to be beneficial to everybody slightly differently. But the biggest thing that's going to happen is you're not going to be debased. What does that mean? That means whenever your government prints money, you're not going to feel it in terms of your Bitcoin. In fact, it will be the opposite. Anytime any government prints any money, your Bitcoin value will go up. The reason it will go up is because Bitcoin is displaying the discrepancy between real world value and the digital value, which is what how all finances are done these days in governments. It's just a few clicks of the button, and now all of a sudden they printed $15 trillion or $7 trillion for whatever emergency or whatever war they're trying to fund. There's no longer any energy backing that extra money, right? Bitcoin is showing you that live. It's a detector of bullshit. It's a detector of hey, they say that there's an extra $7 trillion in the economy right now. And then when you go look at your Bitcoin account, your Bitcoin has gone up by 30%, right? And what that should tell you is, oh, they devalued everybody else by 30% and my Bitcoin held its value, right? Because it can't be printed, right? So that's actually what you're seeing when you see the Bitcoin price go up, is you're seeing inflation being displayed real world of how much value they have taken from everyone else, right? That's not that hard of a concept to understand, but that is what's happening with Bitcoin because it's the only asset that's currently tradable 24/7 all around the planet that cannot be inflated, right? Because this is what FX and currency trading across the planet. That's actually what they're trying to keep in the box, right? When the U.S. prints $7 trillion, the euro or EU borrows some of those dollars so that they can back their euro, so that the discrepancy between the dollar and the euro or any other currency for that matter doesn't get too out of hand, right? Because if the US prints a bunch and every other country suffers, quickly the world catches on, right? But if you can somehow obfuscate that by, hey, we're about to print a bunch of money, right? Country X prints a bunch of money. Well, country Y will borrow some of that money so that they can put it as their backer for their currency so that there's not this big discrepancy so that you can travel from one country to the other and you seemingly live in the same world, right? That's what currencies are doing, right? Bitcoin's the only one that doesn't have a country. Bitcoin's the only one that doesn't have a controller and can't print more and can't borrow against or any of those things. So it's the truest form of just showing you what's going on as far as debasement goes. Um, and that's really the biggest financial hack, right? When you live in a world where every country is printing more of their monetary fiat money to purchase the things that they want, the government wants, because the people, if they knew that they were going to be devalued, they wouldn't be voting for this, right? But it's not a vote. That's what people need to understand. It's not a vote. It's never a vote. It's certain few people decide to go to war or decide to fund certain program or whatever, and they just print the money, right? And you don't have a say in it. You just have to go along with it. Now, you may not have to participate in the whatever they're doing, but your money is going to participate in what they're doing, right? Because you're going to suffer those effects. And so Bitcoin starts to insulate you from those effects. The more you have, the more you get insulated. And so I view Bitcoin as what the the IMF, right? So that's the International Monetary Fund, right? Which is basically the World Bank. They borrow money to countries. The IMF basically wrote a paper this year that showed that Bitcoin is an escape hatch from the fiat monetary system. That's a problem. We need to control it. And the paper then goes on like all the different ways that they'll try to control it, which is basically psyops, right? Because that's the only way that they can, right? They can't physically control the blockchain, but they can control the thoughts of people towards Bitcoin. In other words, they'll try to paint it in a negative light, kind of like what happened the last 4 years if you didn't comply, right? If you didn't
So
comply, you could.
when we go into all this blockchain technology and whatnot, I'm really interested. Can we create something on that system? Sorry, blockchain-based system that we use as our personal health tracker. So nobody can
Yes,
manage it, nobody can use it anywhere else. So we can share
yes.
it only with a doctor or professionals we trust,
Mhm.
and never disappears. So let's say I want to track everything that happens with me, so nobody goes and says, "Oh no, he never did that," or "Yeah, he did this. That's why." Like I want it to be raw truth and nothing
Mhm.
but truth. Can
Yeah,
I
yeah.
create
So
some kind of system using blockchain?
yeah,
Uh,
these are new developments, right? So there's a program out there on the Bitcoin blockchain called Aegeus, like it's some kind of a mythical god type.
things that have
Uh,
those names.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what that program is aiming to do, and it actually does it fairly well currently, but they're going to improve because the interface isn't great right now, is anything that you want to have control of. It can be a PDF document, it can be a video, right? That you don't want out in the public or that essentially that you want 100% control of, right? Because right now, like we've seen, if you upload it to YouTube, YouTube has control of that. If you upload it to Loom has control of that. If you put it on Google Drive, Google has control of that, right? Anywhere right now where you store data, even your laptop, right? Your laptop can be hacked, right? It's not controlled by you, right? Aegeus allows you to put any file, no matter how big, on the blockchain, and it is secured by your seed phrase and your seed phrase alone. It can be any data. It could be biometric data. It could be, sensitive papers, deeds, birth certificates, anything that you can think of, which is not that much different than what we already do. We already put all these things on the internet. The problem is we think they're secure. We think we own them. In reality, we don't, right? They're on some server that somebody else owns. That's their data, not yours, right? That's very important to
Eventually,
understand.
somebody can go and just delete it. Well, obviously, what happened last
Well,
month.
what did we see just recently with 23andMe, right?
Yeah,
There's a lot of personal data in 23andMe, and it's been breached and it's being sold. It's been sold to pharmaceutical companies. It's been sold to people that can use that data against you, right? So blockchain technology, that this is a current thing that is being developed because of exactly what you said, right? People are realizing that they don't actually own any of their data that's on the internet anymore unless you self-host. That's a little bit more cumbersome than most are willing to do. But what if it's as simple as downloading an app and having a little bit of Bitcoin and then putting your data on a secure blockchain that you and only you control? That is a real thing, and that is currently already developed, but it's being developed further so that it can be easy to use, right? So that you don't have to be a power user to be able to do that type of action. Um, and as easy as, hey, now I can download an app and I can just load my files and my information into this app, which is a blockchain technology app. And once it's on there, only you can get it out and only you can share it with other people. And it can never be sold to anybody unless you authorize that. Um,
yeah, it's kind of sad what happened to 23andMe because they used to they amazing stuff, but
yeah,
they
yeah,
were
yeah. Yeah. Let's
censored
highlight that.
to give out as much as they actually can give out. So
Hmm.
they give
Hmm.
out only a fraction of stuff. Like I know that they were able to tell you which medications would never work with you.
Yep.
And
Yeah. And that was
they
actually
put
highlighted. That was
ban on
highlighted.
that they're not allowed to give you that information anymore. Uh,
Yeah.
many other things. So
Yeah, yeah, they got sued. They got sued by the FDA or hand slapped by the FDA, saying that they were practicing medicine by telling you the information of your genetics of, hey, these particular food or medications or these particular types of drugs won't work very well on you, or these will work much better, right? They got flagged for practicing medicine, but that's useful information, right? If you already know this type of stuff and you go to the doctor and he's recommending something that you know is not going to work on you, that saved you a ton of time, or vice versa. Hey, uh, again, they're controlling the landscape, essentially. They're controlling the information that you're allowed to make a decision on. That's a big problem. It makes you non-sovereign, right? Sovereign means that you have all of the information to make accurate decisions for yourself. And media, lobbyists, and governments are cooperating to ensure that you only get the information that they want you to have, even if it's about yourself, right? And 23andMe was exactly that. In fact, the scientist that I highlighted, that's a geneticist, he worked for 23andMe. He highlights this on a YouTube video that got coincidentally scrubbed from the internet because he's talking about all these things live. And again, if you subscribe to his newsletter, it's on his newsletter, right? So that's why I'm saying a lot of this stuff is unfortunate that it's being censored so heavily because they get to guide people into oblivion when you can
And
censor.
this is the reason why we kind of diverged from what we usually talk about to kind of highlight that there is a way that things can be put out without them being lost. Like, and it's interesting that it happened to us, but it was bound to happen. We knew it will happen at some point.
Yeah, eventually it would have happened. But yeah, I mean, that last video, it will still go up unedited onto our school group. If people want to know that information or watch that video, you're right, they can go to our school group and do that. But we wanted to make this video that hopefully doesn't get flagged and just highlight the things that we were talking about in there, not necessarily any details or names or whatever, right? Of all of that type of stuff. And then future applications, right? Cutting edge personalized medicine and stuff like that. That's where that type of stuff comes, right? Like that's how it's going to come to you. Is the only way that you're going to be able to do that is if somehow you get the raw data and you're able to keep the raw data. That sounds really cumbersome, but it's the real thing, right? If you have the means and the capabilities to do it, you should do it. You should start to decentralize yourself and your data because it's what's going to allow you to make better decisions in the future because of how heavily AI and government abuse of information is happening, right? It's so obvious where, especially when you are a content creator and you're putting out, I wouldn't even say controversial information. You're just putting out information that you're seeing come live, right? And instead of allowing that to happen, they're strangling it. They're strangling the
And it's really
information
important that a lot of people heavily depend on AI. And it's not even AI, it's large language model.
yeah,
It takes what's out there the most of the time and give you that summary, so to speak. It
yeah,
does not mean it's right. There's
yeah,
a huge distinction to make. That does not mean it is correct. You
right.
know, I have a friend who's wanting to run a supplement company based on AI. And then he gives me this, I'm going to create a supplement. And I'm like, I know for a fact this stuff that you just gave me does not work. But AI will give you, this is the greatest thing you can create. No, it's not. It's factually wrong. But
Right.
based on large language model, what it sees over and over and over again, it gives you this perception that this is the next best thing.
hmm
You
hmm
need to be
Yeah,
extremely
and
careful.
what you just described right there, what you just described is exactly what agencies and lobbyists and governments want you to not know, right? They want you to perceive like it's the truth. They want you to perceive like that's the way that you need to go. But it's because the large language model is only being fed a certain subject or a certain viewpoint or viewpoints that are similar, right? And that's what I'm trying to highlight. The It's easy to confuse somebody when you're pointing them in the direction all the time through different vectors and not giving them any of the other information, which is exactly what's happening with censorship. It's exactly what's happening with centralized control of information.
Yeah. David, you have been extremely open about all this, and let's hope this goes out. But I'm mindful of your time, and I'll see you next video. And when we're going to dig deep into everything relates to other topics related to health.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much. It was great.
Thank you.